Water does not announce its arrival. It rises slowly, swallowing the ground without resistance, reshaping the land into something unfamiliar. Paths disappear. Borders dissolve. What was once solid becomes uncertain. In these flooded forests, survival no longer belongs to the fastest or the loudest, but to those able to exist where others fail. Here, movement carries risk. Stillness invites death. Every decision is made against a current that never stops pushing forward. The rules that govern dry land lose their meaning, replaced by a quieter, more unforgiving order, written by water and time. This is a world where dominance is not displayed, only endured. Where survival depends on learning a new language, spoken without sound, enforced without mercy. In the flooded forest, nature does not adapt for anyone. It waits to see who will. Across vast regions of South America, the land does not remain constant. Each year, rain arrives with patience and persistence, transforming forests and grasslands into a shifting network of water and isolated ground. Rivers expand beyond their banks. Trees stand half submerged. What once connected becomes fragmented, divided into temporary islands surrounded by slow-moving currents. In these flooded forests, the familiar logic of survival is rewritten. Food sources migrate or vanish entirely. Animals that rely on speed or open terrain lose their advantage, while those able to endure water gain influence. Fish move into newly formed channels. Reptiles occupy the edges between land and river. Mammals crowd onto shrinking patches of dry ground. Their movements restricted, their options reduced. The seasonal flood is not a catastrophe, it is a cycle. Yet within this cycle, pressure accumulates. Space becomes scarce. Encounters become inevitable. Every creature is forced into closer proximity with competitors, predators, and unseen threats moving beneath the surface. Energy must be spent carefully. Mistakes carry heavier consequences. This environment does not reward strength alone. It favors precision, patience, and the ability to function within instability. Survival here is not about dominance over the land, but about coexistence with water, a force that neither hunts nor retreats, only advances. Among the scattered islands of solid ground, one presence moves with deliberate restraint. A solitary jaguar occupies this unstable landscape, navigating a territory that no longer resembles the one it once controlled. The flood has erased familiar boundaries, forcing a recalculation of space, distance, and risk. This individual is fully grown, powerful by biological design, yet operating alone. Jaguars do not rely on numbers. Their survival strategy is built on patience, precision, and overwhelming force applied at the right moment. Here, those traits are tested in unfamiliar ways. The forest floor is submerged. Visibility is limited. Sound carries differently across water. Every movement reveals positions. Physically, the jaguar is adapted for this environment more than most large predators. Dense muscle allows short bursts of swimming. Broad paws push against water as easily as soil. A crushing bite delivers fatal force with minimal struggle and advantage when footing is uncertain. But these strengths come with limits. Water slows reaction time. Escape routes are fewer. Injury, even minor, can mean starvation. In this flooded world, the jaguar is no longer simply an apex predator of land. It becomes a participant in a different hierarchy, one where dominance must be recalculated with each rising meter of water. At first, the flooded forest settles into a fragile routine. The water stabilizes at a level that allows life to reorganize rather than collapse. Narrow strips of higher ground remain above the surface, forming temporary islands where animals gather and wait. The jaguar learns these places quickly. Each day begins with slow movement between cover and water, testing the edges of the new terrain without committing to unnecessary risk. Hunting follows a different rhythm now. On dry land, speed and ambush once decided outcomes within seconds. Here, patience replaces pursuit. The jaguar waits at the margins of waterlogged clearings, watching for subtle disturbances ripples where none should be, shadows moving against the current, brief flashes of movement betraying a presence beneath the surface. Prey is closer together than before, concentrated by shrinking land. But so are competitors and dangers. Periods of rest are longer. Energy is conserved carefully. Every swim costs strength. Every climb onto slick roots and submerged logs risks a fall or injury. The jaguar chooses stillness whenever possible, allowing the environment to reveal its patterns. Capybaras move in cautious groups along the water's edge. Smaller mammals venture out only briefly, retreating at the slightest disturbance. Fish gather near fallen trees where branches create shelter from currents. For a time, this balance holds. Successful hunts are infrequent, but sufficient. The jaguar fades, retreats, and recovers. The system appears stable, even predictable. Yet beneath the surface, pressure builds quietly. The water does not recede. Islands shrink by degrees, too small to notice day to day. Paths that were passable yesterday require longer swims today. Normalcy persists only because nothing has yet forced a decisive change. The jaguar adapts, but adaptation here is temporary. Each routine is provisional, dependent on conditions that are already shifting. In the flooded forest, stability is not a state, it is a brief pause before the environment demands more. The change is gradual, almost imperceptible at first. Water levels rise by centimeters, not meters, but the effect compounds quickly. The higher ground that once offered reliable refuge becomes narrower, its edges dissolving into shallow channels. What were short crossings turn into extended swims. Each movement demands more effort, more time spent exposed. Food becomes less predictable. Prey that once lingered along the margins of land begin to move differently. Capybaras retreat to fewer remaining islands, their paths constrained and heavily trafficked. Smaller mammals disappear entirely, unable to survive repeated flooding. The jaguar is forced to travel farther between opportunities, spending energy before a hunt even begins. Fatigue accumulates. Muscles that are designed for explosive bursts now endure prolonged exertion. Swimming, climbing, and balancing on unstable surfaces erode strength in ways that are difficult to recover from. Rest offers only partial relief. Dry ground is limited, often shared with other animals, unwilling to yield space. Encounters become tense, silent standoffs, resolved not by aggression, but by proximity and risk tolerance. The water itself introduces new complications. Currents shift around submerged trees and fallen branches, pulling unexpectedly. Visibility decreases as sediment is stirred from the forest floor. Sounds distort, carrying farther and with less clarity. The jaguar must rely increasingly on instinct and memory rather than immediate sensory certainty. Hunting success declines. Failed attempts cost more than missed meals. They drain energy reserves that are no longer easily replaced. Each decision, whether to pursue, to wait, or to retreat, carries amplified consequences. There is less margin for error, less opportunity to recover from misjudgment. The environment tightens its hold without urgency or intent. It does not force confrontation, only persistence. The jaguar continues to function within these narrowing limits, adjusting movements and expectations. But the balance established earlier begins to strain. Survival is no longer about maintaining routine. It becomes a calculation of endurance against a system that is steadily closing in. The first warnings do not arrive as direct threats. They appear as absences and interruptions in patterns that once held. A crossing that was quiet days before now carries movement beneath the surface. Ripples form without wind. Fish scatter abruptly, abandoning cover as something larger passes through. Caimans become more visible as water expands into their preferred territory. They occupy the narrow channels between islands, motionless except for eyes breaking the surface. Their presence alters movement across the flooded forest. Prey hesitates longer at the water's edge. Paths that once allowed safe passage are avoided entirely. For the jaguar, each approach to the shoreline now requires assessment not only of what can be hunted, but of what may already be waiting. Early encounters are indirect. A sudden swirl in the water interrupts a planned crossing. A submerged log shifts, displaced by unseen mass. On one occasion, the jaguar enters the water only to retreat moments later, sensing pressure nearby. These moments leave no injury, no confrontation, but they carry information. The environment is no longer neutral. It has begun to resist. The flooded forest compresses interactions. On shrinking islands, animals gather closer together, increasing competition and tension. A misstep sends one mammal into the water, where survival depends on speed and luck. Some do not return. Their absence alters the rhythm of the system, leaving fewer options for both predator and prey. The jaguar adapts by narrowing its movements, choosing crossings with greater care, waiting longer for conditions to align. But caution slows momentum. Each delay extends hunger. Each retreat concedes space. Danger has not yet taken form, but its influence is already present, shaping decisions through uncertainty. These are not moments of crisis. They are signals. In the flooded forest, warning does not arrive with sound or spectacle. It accumulates quietly, announcing that survival will soon require more than adaptation. It will demand confrontation with forces that do not yield. As the flood settles into its later phase, the forest no longer offers space for avoidance. Water surrounds nearly everything. Islands shrink to exposed roots and narrow ridges where footing is uncertain and escape routes are limited. Movement becomes a negotiation between risk and necessity, repeated day after day with no reset. The jaguar is forced into closer contact with the water than before. Longer swims are unavoidable now, each one a calculated exposure. In these stretches, the predator's usual advantages diminish. Speed is reduced. Balance is compromised. The environment dictates tempo, not the hunter. Beneath the surface, shapes move with greater confidence. Caimans patrol familiar channels, conserving energy, while the water does the work of concealment. Encounters begin to repeat. A hunt interrupted by sudden movement below. A crossing aborted midway as pressure builds against the jaguar's flank. Once during a shallow approach, a caiman lunges from cover, missing by distance measured in seconds. The jaguar escapes without injury, but the message is clear. Survival margins are narrowing. Hunting attempts grow more dangerous as traditional prey becomes scarce. The jaguar targets larger, riskier animals, those trapped by the flood and unable to flee easily. Each engagement carries weight. Success provides temporary relief. Failure compounds exhaustion. Injuries accumulate not through dramatic conflict, but through slips, strained muscles, and extended exertion. Recovery time is limited. Resting places are shared, contested, or unreliable. The rhythm of the forest accelerates into tension without release. Threats do not resolve. They recur. Each day introduces the same hazards with slight variation, eroding certainty and testing endurance. The jaguar adapts, continuously refining timing and approach. But adaptation now serves only to delay consequences rather than eliminate them. There is no escalation towards safety, only toward necessity. The jaguar continues forward not because conditions improve, but because stopping is no longer an option. In this phase of the flood, survival is maintained through repetition, repeated exposure, repeated risk, repeated survival, until the system demands a decisive outcome. The flooded forest reaches a state where hesitation carries the same cost as action. The remaining islands are no longer refugees, but temporary pauses exposed on all sides by water that no longer recedes between days. Familiar routes vanish entirely. What remains are crossings that must be attempted regardless of risk. For the jaguar, this is the moment when choice narrows to obligation. Hunger presses harder now, no longer manageable through patience alone. Energy reserves fall below the margin required for caution. Waiting longer will not improve conditions. It will only weaken the body, tasked with enduring them. A decision forms not through intention, but through circumstance. To remain where it is means gradual failure. To move forward means committing to a stretch of water controlled by others. The jaguar chooses motion. The crossing begins without urgency, each movement measured. Water closes around the body, dulling sound and blurring vision. Muscles work continuously, no longer in short bursts, but in sustained effort. Beneath the surface, pressure shifts. Currents pull against submerged limbs. The space allows no rapid retreat. Midway through, the environment asserts itself. Movement below alters direction. The jaguar senses it before seeing it: displacement resistance, a change in the water's behavior. There is no clear threat yet, only proximity. Turning back would require the same exposure again with less strength remaining. The jaguar continues forward. This is the threshold where adaptation ends and commitment begins. There is no longer a safe alternative, only outcomes that must be faced. In the flooded forest, the point of no return is not marked by violence or sound. It is defined by the moment retreat becomes impossible, and survival depends on enduring whatever waits ahead. The confrontation does not begin with speed. It begins with proximity. The water ahead is shallow enough to expose movement beneath the surface, but deep enough to remove firm footing. The jaguar enters without pause, body aligned to minimize resistance, head raised just above the waterline. Each step forward commits weight to an unstable surface that offers no reliable traction. The caiman reacts late. It has remained still too long, relying on concealment rather than distance. When it moves, the water erupts around its body, displacing sediment and breaking the surface in a burst of force. The jaguar turns at the instant of contact, redirecting momentum rather than resisting it. The engagement is brief, violent in motion, but controlled in duration. The caiman lunges toward the torso, jaws closing where the jaguar was moments earlier. Water absorbs impact, slowing reaction time for both animals. The jaguar counters by shifting laterally, driving weight downward and forcing the caiman's head to break the surface. The movement is not instinctive aggression. It is mechanical, the result of repeated exposure to water-based encounters. There is no extended struggle. Prolonged contact would favor the animal built for submersion. The jaguar commits, fully closing distance rather than retreating. Its jaws find purchase at the back of the skull, targeting a structure designed to resist crushing pressure. The bite is precise, applied with force, calibrated for brief effectiveness rather than endurance. The caiman's movement slows abruptly. Resistance collapses into inertia. Water settles around both bodies as the struggle ends almost as quickly as it began. The jaguar holds position only long enough to confirm the outcome, then disengages. Remaining in the water carries risk, even after victory. The kill is not consumed immediately. Dragging the body requires effort that must be rationed carefully. The jaguar moves the carcass toward a partially submerged log, using leverage rather than strength, lifting in stages rather than hauling outright. Each movement is measured. Each pause conserves energy. Feeding occurs in intervals. The jaguar eats, retreats, and returns, never remaining in one place longer than necessary. The environment does not allow ownership. It permits only temporary access. Other scavengers approach, but hesitate, deterred by proximity rather than force. The jaguar does not defend aggressively. It does not need to. Physically, the encounter leaves its mark. Muscles tremble from sustained exertion. Small abrasions appear where submerged branches scraped against skin. None are immediately disabling, but all contribute to cumulative strain. Survival continues, but it does not reset. There is no restoration to earlier condition. The outcome shifts the balance only slightly. Hunger is reduced. Energy returns in limited measure. The flood remains unchanged. The water continues to occupy the forest without urgency or recognition of what has occurred. The jaguar withdraws to higher ground as daylight fades, carrying the weight of the encounter forward. This was not a turning point towards safety. It was a necessary outcome within a system that does not offer alternatives. In the flooded forest, survival is not secured by victory. It is extended moment by moment by meeting demands exactly as they arise. The jaguar endures not because it dominates the environment, but because it functions within it, accepting exposure, committing when retreat is no longer possible, and moving on before the system closes again. As the season advances, the flooded forest shows no sign of response to what has occurred. Water continues to occupy the land with the same indifference as before. Channels shift. Islands rise and disappear. The outcome of a single encounter alters nothing beyond the immediate moment. The jaguar remains within this system, moving through it rather than controlling it. Feeding provides temporary stability, not security. Strength returns only in measured amounts, balanced against constant exposure and ongoing risk. The flood does not end with resolution. It persists, shaping every decision that follows. Other animals adjust as well. Some avoid the water entirely, retreating until space no longer allows retreat. Others exploit it, moving with confidence through depths that deny footing to most. The hierarchy reorganizes continuously, guided by conditions rather than intention. In this environment, survival is never final. It is renewed daily through endurance and alignment with forces that cannot be influenced. The jaguar does not outlast the flood. It survives within it as long as its body and judgment allow. When the water eventually recedes, the forest will not return to what it was. The cycle will begin again, altered but familiar. And within that cycle, the same rule remains unchanged. Life persists not through control, but through the ability to function where certainty no longer exists.